How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another installment of Tech Support Thursday. Recording this a day early because I'm actually thinking about it today. So, what we're going to do is basically go over all the questions that have come in from the previous week. And it was very, very slow the last few weeks with questions and comments and things like that. So, and I am trying to be more engaged in 2024. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the questions. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way. So, we're going to start at the very bottom and work our way up. So, um, thank you, Rob. This is very helpful. I hope you gain more subscribers. You deserve it. Well, I appreciate that. Next question was on the Cisco Enterprise Workbook, link in description. What is the minimum PC specifications to run this lab? And I actually had to think about that one because it was hard to qualify it because I run everything on a dedicated server. So I've got three servers in the basement. Two are Dell, one is Cisco, an older Cisco, and all of them have Eve bare metal installed. The two Dells are Eve Pro, and then the one Cisco is Eve Community, and it gives me a lot of flexibility to demo out basically whatever I want. And I have one other server that's running that does all my VMware stuff. So it's the Cisco, that's the 240M5 that I have in the basement, running Gold 6152 CPUs, so I can run ESXi 8, do NSX4, things like that. So, and I've got content on that coming here, hopefully pretty soon. I am, as a side note, now that the workbook is completed, I am focusing more of my time and effort in recording the remainder of the Enterprise series. And I just knocked out this weekend the crypto section, so that'll get done. I still have quite a bit left to go over. I still have a lot with. I still have some DMVPN, some GRE tunnel. I still have to do FlexVPN, wrap up MPLS VPN. Then obviously QoS, infrastructure security, infrastructure services, things like that. So there's probably another 50 or so videos, if I had to guess, that need to be recorded. Probably a little more than that. But I'm taking the time. I'm doing it on the weekends so I don't burn out during the week. The weekends are recording. Weekdays are me studying and things like that. So I needed to break it up, or else I was going to start to burn out. And it's very hard during the week to do that. So I needed to break it up. So with that being said, that is where that's at. So again, it's one of those things where if you have the ability of dedicating Eve to a physical server and doing a bare metal install, in my opinion, you get way better resource utilization that way than you would if you were to do it other ways, like a virtual machine install and then doing nested virtualization. However, the I only run Intel, and it seems to work out really, really well. So minimums, I really don't know. So it's just obviously, if you don't have the RAM capacity to run 12 CSR 1000 Vs, then you're going to need to do something. Well, technically it's 14 if you include the IPv6 section, but if you don't have the flexibility of doing that, then and you don't have to boot the entire lab up either. You can only boot up a section of it and test it out. So 12 routers I thought was, for the most part, was going to be reasonable for anybody. If you're dealing with 48 gigs of RAM on a Cisco server running ESXi, you should be able to run it relatively simply. So I try to keep the lab small to cover everything. So the next one up here was, thanks for your great informative videos. Question though, with your enterprise lab for EVE-NG, what CSR 1000 image version do you use in the labs and the videos? So it's 15.6 for iOS and 3.17 and 16.6 for CSRs. Then, when you say you covered enough in the blueprint, which blueprint were you referring to? Is this for the CCIE level? and yes, that was my intention, was to use the CCIE blueprint to cover it, but I'll reiterate there because some people still didn't pay attention that it's not a CCIE deep dive. It's not an official certification guide. It's not a comprehensive study guide. It's not a book that you would buy from Cisco Press that would cover how the theoretical pieces of a technology work. There are a couple specific areas that I go into a level of depth, like in QoS, because it is not widely discussed. So I tried to do my best to put into easy to understand terms how things like policing work and how shaping works and stuff like that. So it covers the blueprint topics, and a lot of them. There were several topics, specifically SDI, the software defined WAN and access. Didn't cover them at all because that's a whole other set of issues. But the big thing is that there were select topics not covered, for the simple reason it would have taken me, I don't even know how much longer to go either A, relearn them, refresh my memory, or go learn the topic from scratch, and then to write a workbook lab on it. I was like, I'm just gonna wait until don't have as much on my plate, and try to get it done, and use those particular topics as a update for that. So that's how that comes into play. So then another comment was, is there a roadmap on videos that will be released under the joins section? Thanks. No, I will never release videos underneath the join section. That is, the videos will always be free. Where you come out on top is being able to gain access to the Eve topology files, the initial configurations, things like that. And I did that on purpose because it takes a long time to develop some of these topologies and to configure everything and stuff like that. So yes, you could take the time to, like, do what I've done in the past. And if you see a topology, you pause the screen in a video and then you rebuild it. And that's a lot of what I've done. I've done a lot of lab building in my career, whether it's physically buying servers and putting it together to build myself a data center, or some other thing. Then when you go through and you do this, it's always going to be a supporting documentation for you. So if you want to gain access to Eve files, and it's always going to be Eve. I don't waste my time on CML. So there's that. Beyond that, so that answers that question. And then we come up here to the next one, and this one basically is the same repeat. They asked the question on both, so you asked the same question twice on two different videos, maybe. Next comment was, thank you for the service provider videos that you posted. It is very well thought out and kind of like Eli 5. I don't know who that is. Going to support you in Patreon on my payday. Oh, appreciate that. Will it include service provider topologies? So I still have the intention of going out and watching the video, pausing, blowing it up, and then building it inside of Eve, just so I can create a topology file that I can export and put on a service provider. However, if you that's some time, and I just haven't had time to do that. So just bought the book, 496 pages. Yep, thank you. Will we have an SP book? There will be a service provider workbook coming out at some point in the future. The problem with it is there's a lot of, like I did with CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure, I would follow the CCIE Service Provider version 5 blueprint. And there's a lot of technology on there that I'm familiar with a good portion of it. And I could probably lab most of it up pretty easily. But instead of trying to run through it and get it done as quickly as I can, I'm going to take my time with it and I'll release it. But just like this workbook, it won't be a technical deep dive. It won't be like Nick Russo's CCIE workbook or CCIE study guide that he released like 8 years ago now, 7 years ago. Forget how long it's been since it's been out, but it's been a long time since it's been out. But it's one of those things where I don't believe in putting that much time and effort into a book. In my opinion, like if you put that level of detail into a book, it's author dependent. I don't believe I would get the return on my investment. I wouldn't get it paid enough, so I would never put that much effort into a book. To me, it's easy to lab something up. Especially on the CLI. It's easy to copy the config out of the router or the switch, paste it into a book, copy that information into a workbook or into a Word file, and then put a few lines of information in there to help whoever's trying to implement the technology successfully the first time, so they have an idea of how to verify it. The whole goal of the book was to provide known good configuration for a particular capability and put that configuration in place so you would have a working solution available to you. It's a companion product, not a holistic solution. I've made that mention quite a few times. What does the enterprise notebook entail? So it covers the blueprint, but again, it's not a technical deep dive. So another question was, is this a monthly payment? No, it is not a monthly payment. The only time you would ever pay monthly would be for either to click the join button on the channel, and that would be $10 a month, and you would gain access to all of the e-files and things like that. But I've gotten quite a few people have commented that there is no join button on when they look at the videos. So I created a Patreon and linked it to there. So it's the same price for gaining access to documentation and things like that. So if you buy through Patreon, it pays me the same rate. So it's very, very close. They're pretty similar. But at the end of the day, I need to provide you guys with a way to be able to access the files that you want to access. So if you already have bought the book is yours. So it's not like you should never have, when I post a revision update and things like that, all of you that have access to the book, that you bought the book, you should always have access to it, revisions and things like that. So the goal would be to, like, the intention is when I do get a revision done, let's say I update 5 labs, and then I post that I've updated these 5 labs, and everything's good to go. I post about it, Patreon, LinkedIn, Google, YouTube, and on Twitter. If you're following me on any of those platforms, you'll get an update. And the cool thing about it is, you should already have access to that. And if you don't, then you need to let me know that you don't have access to it, so that I can get you access to it. So it's a fairly straightforward process, but that's the key thing. Again, what level is it for? I said not a CCIE deep dive. So there was a lot of back and forth with this guy here. And I expected some sort of feedback like this, where, hey, it would have been great if you would have done this. The lab he's specifically talking about is very specific, which is basically doing EIGRP in the LAN, BGP to the internet, and then MPLS VPN, and showed how to make Phase 3 DMVPN. Basically, he wants to see DMVPN Phase 3 with IPsec, and then NAT probably on the spokes and the hubs. It's a very, very complicated lab. Not something that I would recommend unless you're deep diving and you have the intention of going to your CCIE. You probably won't get anything that complicated. I don't even think I saw anything that complicated in the lab. there's a lot going on here, but just be aware that if you have the interest in seeing something like that, the worst you could do is comment and I forget about it, or the worst you could do is don't comment or leave a suggestion, because obviously I can't think of every possible lab for you to test out, but there are going to be. I don't mean to pick on this guy, but when you are trying to test something out, the big thing is feel free to use my topology to be your baseline for that. But one thing that I really don't like doing is trying to get into in-depth technical discussions in the comment section. That's really, is there a way for you to do that? There are. However, this is very, very specific. I have no problem trying to break down a technical concept if you're, and try to give you some feedback on it. If you ask me a very pointed question, like in a paragraph, and I could probably scroll through and find a video or find a comment and give a very pointed response back. But the big thing is, I'm not going to do the heavy lifting for you. You're the one that's going to have to go and do the majority of the lifting and bring me the very specific stuff that's like, okay, this is not working. One of the things that I don't do is I don't take what something like in this particular case with this guy, I don't take that, throw it into a lab and try to figure it out for him. I don't do that. That's you're working through that problem. You need to work the problem. And that's just the bottom line here. Is I will help you if you, for example, this is something that I definitely don't like seeing. When I see this, I'm like, really, dude? And part of it is if you don't know what you're doing, go read the documentation. I'm sure there's a video out there or a blog post where somebody did something just like this, and you just have to do your due diligence to go find it. And so this to me is, and I don't mean to pick on them, but this to me is one of those things where you really need to step it up and figure it out. And the book doesn't cover this. There is no lab that covers these specific things. The book covers an MPLS VPN deployment with all the different PE to CE routing mechanisms, and so IGP and BGP with static routing. But it's for a basic MPLS VPN like what you would see. It's an enterprise infrastructure specific MPLS VPN lab. It's not a service provider level detail where I would go in and I would have multiple VRFs and I would have multiple import-export policies with route maps and prefix lists controlling which traffic can go where and route tags and all other type of stuff. That is not what that's for. And the service provider book sure would. That would be right up the alley of service provider. But for this one here, way too much detail. So I'm not gonna I don't go out and sound like I don't want to sound like I'm bashing anybody or what have you, but it comes to a point where you really got to stop what you're doing, quit asking me for help, and you've got to go do some research, go figure it out. There are books, there are blog posts, there are videos. As a matter of fact, if you have the intention of going this deep and you want to get into doing inter-VRF route leaking and doing shared services or central services VPN with your MPLS VPN, great. I will tell you right now that until I start releasing content about SP, your best bet is to go look up Nick's book. I'm not going to link it, but if you were to Google Nick Russo CCIE book, go buy his book. He goes into that level of detail. But I will warn you, it is CCIE out of the gate. He doesn't warm up CCNA, CCNP. He takes you out of the gate, and he's doing deep dives and debugs and breaking down the individual technology, how they operate. It is not for somebody that is, say, they're CCNA working on their CCNP and they're looking to just dip their toes in the water. You are diving into the deep end. It's like going the best way I've ever heard it described. It's like I'm big in military podcasts. I love listening to Navy SEALs talk about their careers and things like that. It is literally like his book. When you dive into it, it's like diving into a pool and you're going through pool comp and buds, and you are getting your butt kicked in the bottom of the pool. That's how deep he goes. But that's the purpose of his book. So if you have that level of, if you have that drive to want to understand it, that's, to me, that's the purpose of his book was to go that deep on purpose. So I digress. Are the sections of the evolving technologies portion of the blueprint, or is this core route switch? And for it will always be core route switch. I did cover, didn't do anything beyond that. I don't do automation or programmability. That's not me, so don't waste your. I won't waste my time on it. Let's see. My question is, what images you use? I've already covered that. You can use iOS V if you'd like. At the end of the day, it's just it's another writing platform. I didn't do anything with CML. So if you want CML, you'll have to figure it out. No STA coverage. First impressions was nicely done. A lot of good work in Nexus and VXLAN. I do my best. If I'm a CCNA level engineer and I want to work on getting my CCNP or higher, what are my options for this? Go right ahead, grab it. It's not a technical deep dive. It is a book written with the intention of being a companion guide. I remember back in the day, there was a CCNA, 30 Days of CCNA, or the Quick Reference Guide. Essentially, this is what that is. It's a workbook that helps you put together all the moving parts and helps you understand how they work. So, first a student, then an engineer, then an instructor. You can't be an instructor before you're a student. You got to understand how the things works first. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me in this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please drop it in the comment section below. If you haven't already done so, please like, share, and subscribe. There will be a link to the workbook, the Patreon link in the description. And if I'm smart, I'll probably pin it to the top comment. So if you guys are interested in the book, let me know. If there is a specific thing you would like to see covered that you either didn't see in the book or you just are like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, feel free to put a couple of lines of information in there. I will see those. I see every comment. And we'll see about using that as updates and things like that for in the future. So whatever you don't do, don't not comment. If there's something you want me to cover, make sure to comment. Make sure it's visible to me, because I don't read people's minds, and I definitely don't. I stopped asking people what they wanted to see for coverage on the channel because I was getting some out of F5 this and VMware that. I'm like, come on, guys. I obviously can't replicate AWS in my home lab. So it's just but anyway, that being said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by, hanging out, and I will catch all of you in the next video.